Hey guys, how's it going? Kermode here. Welcome back to another tutorial. In this video, I'm actually going to build on what I just did the other day, which was a tutorial on how you can take a single pattern and stretch it out into an entire song. Or at least the video was the concept of creating bass patterns themselves. This video is going to be about how you can take that one pattern and then turn it into a second version, a third version, a fourth version, and create an entire track out of it. I'm going to be demonstrating this inside of the project file for the title track of my new EP called Chameleon. If you guys like what you see, you're actually able to purchase the project file from Producer Dojo, and that's going to come with an early version of the project before things are flattened, a final version of the project after things are flattened, and a video walkthrough for myself that you only get with the project file. I also want to say if you guys haven't subscribed or hit the bell, it would really mean a lot. It really helps the channel and just helps bring attention to these videos that I put time into so you guys can learn. And then lastly, before we get into the video, I do want to say that this video is sponsored by Audeze headphones. Audeze creates the headphones you see here that I'm wearing, and they are an integral part of my workflow, and I wouldn't have been able to write my recent Chameleon EP to the quality that it was if it wasn't for these headphones. So I can't recommend them enough. But without further ado, let's just dive right into it. So I've actually opened up an early version of Chameleon here. So this is before it's mixed down, before I've done kind of the tight detail work. So this is actually an old version of the session. And the reason for that is the mid basses are not flattened yet. So I can kind of really show you guys, how you can go about creating variants within your presets to create new patterns. So let's first identify the main pattern of the song. So there, you guys pretty much saw it there. It goes bass 1, bass 2, bass 1, bass 2, bass 3, bass 4, bass 3, bass 4, repeat, but then instead of bass 3, bass 4, it goes bass 5, bass 6. And that happens again over here. So there is actually a B section here, which is a different pattern, but it repeats for the repeat of the main concept. So and then the second half of the song does the exact same thing, where it's, this pattern, a B section, repeat of that pattern, and the two B sections are the same. So there are technically two main patterns in this song, but that's more variation. But what I'm going to show you is how you can take something like this and change it into something like this to stretch out a song. So let's look at how you would do that. So first and foremost, I'm actually just going to duplicate this entire section. That's going to be step one, what you guys are going to want to do. And right now I'm not worrying about chronological order. You can switch that up as you write the song. And I actually wrote this song backward, where what ended up being the later half of the track was actually what I wrote first. But let's disregard that. So what you do once you've duplicated the pattern is you take all the sounds that are in that pattern and you duplicate them out. So we're going to duplicate like so. Now we have two versions of each one, and we're going to checkerboard it so the duplications don't exist at the same time. Now that we have these variants, I am going to open it up. We can start varying, and I'm just going to tell you guys some sort of rules or guidelines that I recommend you do when varying presets. When you take a preset, you duplicate it and you try and make a new version of it. So for this type of technique, you really want consistency, where if you're duplicating patches, you want them all to feel the same. It's going to save you a lot of headache in the mixdown process, and it's just going to give this really cohesive feel to each song you make. So there's a few elements you want to avoid changing. One is going to be anything that really creates the characteristic for the sound itself. So in this case, the multiband compressor inside of Serum is pretty integral for the tone of the sound. See how much darker it is without it? So that's one you're going to want to keep on no matter what. Number 2 is you don't want to touch anything that affects the volume. You want things to be as consistent in volume as possible. So don't touch the master volume. Try to avoid touching the levels on the individual elements, and try avoid touching anything that changes the gain. So that includes, if you're using distortion, I recommend keeping the drive value quite similar, because if you start to drive it more, it may change the overall volume. Now, that's a little situation dependent. You may be able to get away with it. Just be aware of that. And that leads into one other thing, where if you're using filters, I recommend keeping the resonance quite similar, because if you start to increase the resonance within patches, but you want them to be similar, you're going to have different kind of frequency spikes, and it becomes a little more inconsistent. Again, similarly, that's not really a rule, that, but it's kind of recommended, in my opinion, that you keep resonance the same, volume, sort of integral effects such as OTT or something that really makes a sound, and anything that really just affects overall volume and things like that. Now, these techniques, by the way, I should say, apply outside of Serum. So if you're using Ableton instruments or other VSTs, this applies. So just disregard if you don't have Serum, you can still apply this. So now let's vary this preset. So you have a few options. You know, the first is the LFO rate and shape. So if I want consistency with the pattern, I may not want to go in and change it like this. But that could work really well for a B section. Okay, maybe that's one option. But I'm going to keep it consistent. So that's one option, is the LFO shape, and LFO rate is a great way. Next is the wavetable itself. Now you could start with just the wavetable position. See how that already... What's cool is this is very consistent with the previous sound, and again, I think it's really good for this type of music where you're throwing new sound at the listener, for them to at least feel pretty similar. So keeping the same wavetable is a great option, and just changing the position. From there, also changing the warp mode, or how much the warp mode is affecting it. So we could do that, or we could just start to change out the wavetable. So that works. Now, next to that is changing the filter or filter position. So in this case, we could change the cutoff. Start to get a really different vowel. But because we didn't change the resonance, it still stays in line with what we were just doing. So maybe we go up just a little bit, or we try a different filter shape. We could even go in and try some of the flanges, although you start to really change things there. So maybe not in this case, though you totally could. Or you could try the different multi-filter shapes, and actually kind of like that bandpass pull. Now after that, if you layered anything in there, you could switch out layers. In this case, it's just noise, so I'm not going to do that. But if you had a different oscillator, that could really work. But now what I recommend doing is going into the effects and changing things that are not integral to the sound. So this tube distortion isn't completely integral. We could switch it out. The flanger, we could totally change the depth position. Let's turn up the mix so we can... Well, I like that. Actually added a bit of a weird internal pitch. I'm actually going to keep that. So that worked for this sound. The chorus I'm going to keep the same because it kind of deals with the stereo image of the sound. Now this EQ is clearly pretty integral to the shape, and it affects the volume, so this is one I'm not going to change. And this filter, similarly, if we wanted to, we could offset the different cutoffs. But I kind of liked it. Okay, it's good there. So that's one patch down. Next, what you do is you go on to the second patch and you find something that fits with this one. So I'm going to go a little quicker through this now that you guys understand the concept, you know, what to leave and what to change. So maybe in this one we could see if we could get a different groove in here perhaps. That's cool. That starts to change things. Let's try the wavetable position. And I'm going to keep it simple for that one. Like, why do we have to change it so much if I like it? You know, hypothetically, I obviously didn't just change for the sake of changing. I changed it to something that I liked. But let's say, hypothetically, in that case, I did. So this one I want. And let's change this one. So this one, do we want to change the rate? Let's test it out. That's not bad. That kind of adds a little bit more oomph. Now I'm going to do a whole different wavetable for this one. Doesn't really fit the previous sound. You really want them to blend into each other. Ooh, I like that one. That's just kind of gritty and gross. Maybe let's amplify that a little bit. Let's change up the distortion. Cool, and there we go. So those are two different sections in a song, technically. Obviously, I could have spent more time on it, but let's check it out. Then we do a different version later. That one could have used more. But you see what I mean? You quickly start to vary it and you quickly come up with entire song ideas. Ha. So I do want to remind you guys that this project file here is actually something you can get. So this is an early version, so if you grab it, you not only get this, but you also get the final mixdown version. Let me pull that up for you guys. So this is the clean, polished up version of the project that you guys were just hearing with all the right final sounds, all the right final fills. Let's just quickly listen so you can compare. So you can hear way more polished. So if you guys want to actually kind of learn more about how I produced the main track off my new EP, this project file will be available. I'll leave it in the description of this video. So thanks guys, my name's Kermode. If you haven't subscribed, please do, it means the world, and I'll be back soon with another tutorial. Peace.